Here's the Blu808 Corvette. As you guys can see, we've already taken out the interior and most of the unneeded items. We're going to go around the car and show you what we're going to do to it to make it competition ready.
So a lot of people might wonder why we'd want to build a Corvette to compete in Formula Drift when there's so many other good options out there. You have the Nissan 240s, a lot of the guys are using Mustangs now. We campaigned a Camaro last year, and all those are good choices. We just want something that would be a little bit different. Nobody's ever built a C6 Corvette strictly for Formula Drift use. We think it's a really good looking car, and underneath it all, it's a really good candidate for what we're trying to do. So with Formula Drift, the rules pretty much allow us to chop off anything in front of the suspension pickup points for their most point forward. So what we'll do is mark this here, and we'll come back and measure it, make sure it's all straight, and we'll end up chopping this front part of the frame off. We'll then put a flat plate there with thread certs and build our new crash bar assembly out of aluminum tubing that'll come off, and that should save about 40 or 50 pounds off the front of the car. We'll hold our radiator set up and all of our body mounts too. It's kind of a weird feeling marking a perfectly good Corvette where you're gonna cut it up. I know when we built Conrad's Camaro, it was a brand new car, just taken off the lot. It had like 12 miles on it, and first thing we did was tear the thing apart. So it's always kind of a weird feeling. From what seems like you're destroying a perfectly good car, you'll actually make it better in the long run. Alright, so now that we're here at the back of the Corvette, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mark the areas that we're going to chop off of the frame. And again, the Formula D rules permit us to cut anything behind the rearmost pickup point of the suspension and the subframe. So we'll just mark this here. We'll go over to the other side and measure so we can get an even cut across the whole length of the rail. And again, we're going to plate this and then put a new crash bar on shear plates. That way if we crash it, we could just unbolt it and then put a new one on. Basically, whatever type of race car you're building, you need to spend a lot of time and attention in the suspension department. LG Motorsports agreed to help us out with that. They have a lot of data and information on how to make these Corvettes handle really well. One of the things we're going to do is actually remove the carbon fiber leaf spring that you see right there and replace it with a set of the LG Motorsports adjustable coilovers with some custom valving and spring rates. All this plastic that you see here, this rear tub assembly, basically the back half of the car is just a plastic tub. This whole thing unbolts, it'll leave the frame rails exposed, it'll give us easy access to do a proper roll cage on the vehicle, and it'll give us easy access to all the suspension and transmission components on the car. Same thing here at the front of the car, more plastic pieces attached to the frame. These front fender trays are actually just glued to the frame, bolted to the frame, and this whole assembly here, everywhere that we've marked with the red X, is going to come off. Here's the engine that came with our Vette. It's a standard GM LS2, 6-liter, 400 horsepower, all aluminum small block V8. We're actually going to remove this entire engine assembly and replace it with a turnkey engine supply built high compression LS3. It should be making over 600 horsepower at the wheels, so that'll be plenty of horsepower to get the job done. We won't have any cooling issues to worry about with any forced induction application. It should be a fun setup. Turnkey does a real good job of building their motors, and we're looking forward to running their package all season. Another cool feature on the Corvettes is the doors are all fiberglass. The whole body on it's FRP plastic, and it really doesn't weigh much. The doors themselves, once you take the windows out, the regulator assembly and all the speakers, they really weigh about the same as a carbon door from any aftermarket company. So that's one area where the Corvette's already equipped for our motorsports purposes. Makes it easy to build, and we'll pretty much just hollow out the door assembly right here, so that way the roll cage door bars can come into the door shell itself. GM did something really cool for us here. They made the floor pan on these completely flat. There's basically no studs or anything sticking up through the floor. So all we really have to do is just build the seat mounts, and it gives us a nice flat floor area for the driver's feet to reside. Makes it look really clean and simple. You guys can see here that we're still in the process of removing the heater duct assembly and all the blower motor and wiring from underneath the dash. All the dash bars right here and up top are going to eventually come out, and the roll cage will actually come through here and provide its own dash bar. We're still undecided whether we're going to use the factory pedals or go to a Willwood setup, so we'll probably have that answered in the next couple weeks. For the Corvette, we're going to be machining our own parts for the steering system. We're really going to try and get a lot of steering angle out of the car. One of the things we really focused on with Conrad's Camaro was the steering system, and I think everybody will agree if they've seen that car run that it's able to sustain one of the most crazy steering angles that you'll ever see out of any car in Formula D. I think the Corvette will be right on par with it, so it'll be exciting to see what we come up with. So now that we have our lines marked out on where we're going to cut, it's time to start cutting. There we go. So now that we removed the fender tray, we actually have room for some steering angle. That's pretty sweet. So now that we're starting on the roll cage here on the Corvette, we're gonna hollow out the door skins so that way the door bars can protrude into them. So what we've done is just marked out where we're gonna cut, and we'll use the air saw here and cut them out. Hey, so should I tell him the story about how Conrad called me last night when he was heading back from PRI and he wanted to borrow my truck, but I had him take the Genesis instead because turbo peed in it. So we originally want to cut out like the whole rear tub of this car. The whole back half is like a plastic bathtub that can come out. Formula D wasn't too happy about that, so luckily they let us cut out a 8x10 area here to do the roll cage to the frame. So we got this all cut out, got the plate down on top of the shock tower there in the frame, and got some tubes mocked up. It's pretty much just tacked right now. It's all chromoly 4130, so it should be pretty springy. It should really stiffen up the car, so that'll be nice. We have pretty much half of our work done back here. We still have to make the other tube on the X and finish reinforcing everything, and then we should move on to the front part of the cage. So now we're measuring to make the diagonal bar for the hoop here. So one of the really important things when building a chromoly cage is that all your notches have to be like perfect, because if you want your weld to be nice and strong, it has to be perfect. All right, up. Yes. Is that awesome?
What in the name of sweet breakfast meat you doing?
For your information, this is me being creative. Betty told me this is what I need to do in order to become an artist.
Oh yeah, is it working?
You never seen this?
I can't think of anything to draw because I'm so stupid.
Hey Drew, you should go check that out. do you think of that, Jeff? Jeff, what do you think?
Awesome.
Is it?
No?
All right. Well, shut the f up. We got to film.
Okay.
So it's day 4 of the build here at Blu808. It's about 2 in the morning. I think it's Wednesday. No, it's Thursday now. As you can see, we have the Corvette entirely stripped down, part of the cage completed, have the whole drivetrain and engine removed, starting to prep all the parts and get everything ready for our next shipment from LG. We actually received a lot of the parts in from LG today. We got our coilovers and radiator, we got the long tube headers and some other goodies, so we're going to talk about those here in a second. So this is one of the neat items that the guys over at LG sent over. This is their super cool radiator, and what this is basically a scaled down version of the one they use in their ALMS race car. This right here is obviously just a radiator core, but what makes this thing unique is it has 2 built-in coolers. It has a tube and fin cooler that goes inside the intake here and pops out up top, and this will allow us to run our power steering fluid through the inside of this radiator for its own cooling. On this side here we have another cooler built in which goes the entire length of the intake and pops out here, and this will allow us to run our engine oil cooler through there. So a little bit added cooling. It'll be perfect for drifting since we don't need a huge engine oil cooler or power steering core, so I think it'll work out really well. These are the LG GT2 Corvette coilovers. A lot of people asked us that when we're out at the track, you know, what type of suspension we use, if we want like an inverted monotube, twin tube, if we want, you know, helpers on the springs, stuff like that. If we want a double adjustable coilover, triple adjustable, external nitrogen reservoir, stuff like that. To be honest with you, it's for drifting and time attack and even most forms of road racing, a single adjustable coilover would be more than sufficient, especially for people who are just starting out on the track. For our drift needs, this would be perfect. We don't need an external reservoir, it's just added weight. The car's not going to be on the track long enough to really get the fluid going inside enough to require an external reservoir, so these will be great. They use the standard 2.5 inner diameter spring, so you could swap it out with different spring rates. It's height adjustable, 12-way damping adjustment, and actually opens up the piston all the way when you go soft, so the dampening adjustment is pretty broad across the entire range of the coilover itself. Should give us exactly what we need for drifting. These are the LG Motorsports Super Pro long tube headers. These are the best in the business when it comes to headers for any Corvette really. C5, C6, standard, Z06, LS2, LS3, whatever. These are what you want if you have a Corvette. These were derived directly from Lou Gigliotti's ALMS race car, and they've spent, I think it was something like 80 hours on the dyno for each header design that they have. I was talking with Lou at SEMA about a month ago about how they design these things and build them, and one of the unique features on these is the collector. The collectors are actually cast pieces. These are cast stainless sides, only ones like it in the world, and they have each piece of these collectors here cast out of stainless and then welded together, and it's a truly amazing process they had to go through to get these things to be mass produced. We're excited to run them on the Vette, and they should bump the power up about 40 horsepower at the wheels, so that'll be pretty substantial as well. 2 in the morning, building roll cages. It's fun stuff. 30. About 30 inches long. Front width. Wide. This should give us our design for the halo. Now I just want to go back and mark everything out and double check. Yep, that looks good. So the program we use here at the shop is called BendTech Pro. We use it for all the roll cages here at Blu808. Makes everything really easy, eliminates any wasted material. You can do a simulation of what it's going to look like going through the bender after you have all your measurements made. Makes it real easy. It's important whenever you're cutting chromoly to use a bandsaw or a cold saw. Anytime you use a chop saw or anything with heat, it just makes the metal brittle. There it goes. All right, let's bring it back over, bend it up. You got it? One of the things anybody has trouble with when they're making a hoop or multiple bend piece is how to keep the legs from walking, how to keep everything bent on the same plane. So what we do is just take this clamp, put our level, put it on, so that way each bends at the same degree. So we'll stop here and see what our bend plane's at. All right, 2 degrees. And how many degrees are we at there?
2.5 or so.
Huh, 2 degrees. Hold that. So 18. So now we'll slide it forward. Our next mark. Alright, so now we're just going to line it up. Alright, so, yep, right there. A little bit down more. Right there, perfect. A little bit down more. That's fine. Perfect, right there. I'm always worried this bolt's gonna break and kill one of us. Uh-oh. It's loose, huh? Maybe it doesn't do anything. That doesn't explain why the first time we used it bent. Oh, now it's doing something.
It bent because we didn't have that middle piece.
What middle piece?
We were pushing against the mold itself.
Oh yeah, no, that's because we tried to do 1 3/4 and we had this thing 1 3/4, follower 1 3/4, but not whatever the hell that thing is. Slide it out. Pull it out and bring it over to the notcher. This one will be 60 degrees but leaned over the other way. Alright, let's just see if it fits. Probably won't because we're way too tired. It doesn't fit.
Dude, you're off by 90 degrees on this one. Oh, you got me. I really thought that was legit. No. Sure it's not upside down?
4 in the morning. Are you kidding me?